Joe! Joe の野郎。鬼姫が完全にぶっ潰しやがって。
Oh my god. Hello everyone, welcome to Joe Consume Cinema. I'm your host, Blood Debt, and today we have Ashita no Joe, episode 55. So last episode, very interesting, the whole conversation between Joe and Yoko. You know, I'm still not quite sure what exactly is going through her head, like there's a bunch of different emotions. It seemed like to me, when she first saw Joe, in that park on the swing set, in the snow crying, she was genuinely moved by it. So I thought, when they eventually had this conversation, because, sooner or later it was going to have to happen, that she was going to be, sympathetic, understanding, and that is not at all how that conversation played out. She was mean and aggressive to the point of being, vindictive, and I don't know if she's just really upset in her own right at the whole situation, which honestly she's a bit justified to be, or if she's sort of trying to goad Joe into returning to fighting. As she described it, screw your feelings. You owe a debt to these men, Wolf and Rikishi, to just not sink into nothingness and actually become something in the boxing world because you owe them. These people, Wolf gave his career, Rikishi gave his life. If you become nothing, then it's an insult to them and it's just a dishonor to their memory. Like, that's the entire reasoning that she went through. And, part of me thinks maybe, that'll actually work and get him to return to fighting. But the other part of me is like, that's a really dark and kind of messed up reasoning. And it's not the type of motivation that a fighter should rely on. Like, you have to do this. You're enslaved to this situation. There's no escape. Like, it's supposed to come from a place of, wanting to succeed, wanting to provide for, friends and family, wanting to have a better life, wanting to just fight for the sake of fighting. That's good, strong motivation in a way that, is very positive, and fighters that have a strong support structure and a real reason to fight better. Being a slave to the memory of your long dead rival is not the type of thing that's going to produce, good results in the boxing world. But yeah, I'm hopeful this episode, we've had the discussion between Joe and Yoko. I think now Joe has to visit Rikishi's grave. That's just how I see things playing out. I'm really hoping that Dangpei or Nishi shows up, relatively soon, because Joe's in a really bad spot. He came really close to, getting into a fight that was going to get him sent to jail, so yeah, like, some intervention here is definitely warranted, and the sooner the better, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm eager to get to it, so let's just get right to it. Sando Balcony Kao Mega Tatake 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 Ashite wa Kiito Ashite wa Dochi da.
わしの女王よ、おめえ一体どこをさまよってるんだ。一日も早くジムに戻ってきてくれ。
The Wandering Ballad.
ジョー。ジョーだ。ジョー兄が。どこに帰ってこだよ。お前らには聞こえんのかい、ジョーの口笛が。
It's just in his head.
ジョー。
He actually has come back.
や。ジョー。
No, it wasn't his head. The Dangpei Boxing Club has become a tomb. It's so dark. Quick reminder to like, comment, share, subscribe. Also consider signing up for my Patreon. For $1 per month, you get access to all my exclusive reactions, also a guaranteed movie request. With that, let's get right back to the reaction. Is that Wolf? I guess he's turned to a life of crime.
ウルフの兄貴がこっちの味方になったって聞いたらおとなしくなっちまったな。俺がやられる前に肋骨をぶち折られて死んでもらうのはそちらという計算だが、覚悟してるなら来なよ。
Well, that was easy. This is the guy he's supposed to have a blood debt to? Your jaw got broken, you idiot. Okay, he's become a loser. Well, here we go. Gondo the Brawler? This got interesting. Oh shit. That jaw. Oh shit. Wow. Here we go. He recognizes him. Oh shit. Jeez. I would not be sticking up for Wolf after what I heard him talking about. Oh shit. He's gonna kill you for talking that shit. Oh, Jesus. He's so relieved to, hear that he's alive, and also that his punches still have fire in them, that, he can come back to boxing. You don't have to, dude. Wow.
思い出だけじゃ生きていけそうもね
Hmm. Yeah. Okay, it took some time just to gather my thoughts. Episode 55, really good one. So not how I thought things were going to go at all. You know, Dangpei and Nishi still patiently waiting for Joe. Dangpei has been sleep deprived, so he starts to literally just imagine Joe, like hearing him whistling. You know, runs up to the bridge and then sees what he thinks is Joe coming towards him, and it's just, he's sleep deprived, so he's seeing and hearing things. Joe, on the other hand, still wandering around, happens upon these Yakuzas, beefing over some territory. And it turns out that one of the big enforcers, like the boss of one of the groups, is Wolf Kaneguchi. And, after that injury that he suffered from Joe, boxing is out as a career. So it's kind of like what other option is available to him. So it's understandable that he would kind of gravitate towards, Yakuza, just being a gangster, and there's not a lot of options left on the table for a former fighter who has a serious flaw to the point where like one hit to their chin and they're down for the count. So it's interesting. He's kind of one of those people that kind of like peaked in high school, like they got the Letterman jacket that they always wear, and they're just trying to live vicariously through their memories of the past rather than just moving on and living in the present. Like he's permanently trapped in the past where he was this hot young boxing prospect, was supposed to be fighting for this world title, and then in comes Yabuki Joe, smashes his jaw in, and that's the end of his career. And he's talking about how I wish I could have gotten the chance to fight Yabuki again. It would have been different. He only won because of the 1 centimeter difference. That was it. Really, he's lying to himself, but it's all he's got. It's kind of a very sad existence. But beefing with Yakuzas, eventually tit for tat, they come back. They hire this other brawler, not boxer, whose name was Gondo, I believe, but he's not as technical as Wolf, so when they actually do fight, Wolf still has the advantage, but it's not a boxing ring. There are not rules, it's just a street fight. So despite the fact that, he's clearly beating him up, he leans back and, kicks him right in the jaw, and he has that injury, so he just falls to the mat, grabbing his face, screaming. And this guy isn't letting up. He's just, beating the shit out of him. At that point, Joe intervenes to, prevent this guy from killing him because that's what he was going to do. This guy recognizes Joe, and he can tell just by looking at his eyes that, he's still an active fighter. He describes it as he has like eyes like a tiger, like just ready to pounce at, a moment's notice. So he's very, very dangerous. Wolf has the eyes of like a sunken fish, like he's dead out of water. Joe gets very angry about what the guy is saying about Wolf, but it's honestly very true. Like Wolf now has a very sad existence where, he's turned to crime, which is bad enough, but the whole, I could have taken Joe easily. I just needed one more chance, 1 centimeter difference, I would have had him. That's really pathetic. Like, if you're going to lose a fight, just lose a fight and, move on from it. If you have the option to come back and do better, then do that. If you don't, then just accept it and just move on with it. Joe, in a way, is kind of jealous of Wolf because he gets to live in his own memories. He can't do that because every memory he has of Rikishi, his main rival, just inevitably reminds him of the fact that he killed him. So, he can't do that. It was interesting. Joe got locked up, but, fortunately at the very end, he got released. I think next episode, Joe is finally going to visit Rikishi's grave, or, more likely, he's going to run into Dangpei or Nishi, who hopefully, will be able to talk with him. That's what he needs more than anything right now, is just a friend to talk with. When Dangpei learned that, Joe was in jail, he was actually ecstatic because it's like he's alive. And also the fact that his punches were so, devastating to that guy that they literally did damage to his internal organs, which is pretty insane. Joe hits really, really hard. And it's kind of like a double meaning there. The fact that Joe is actually physically alive, but also the fact that he's throwing punches that can do that kind of damage. Like he's still a boxer. He still has it, and he can still come back. So Dangpei was celebrating two things there. The fact that Joe was actually alive, and the fact that his spirit is still alive, like the fighting spirit. But yeah, it was a really good episode, and honestly, I'm just going to get right to the next one. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got. As always, thanks for watching, and peace.